If you're thinking about transitioning into freelancing as a web designer, but you're not sure if it's too late for you or if it's even possible, I want to share with you 3 stories from Flux Academy students who have made the transition successfully.
Hey, my name is Isaac. I'm 29 years old. I spent my early 20s in the military and in law enforcement, and I've been doing web design for about 2 years now.
Hi, my name is Dan Plumidor. I'm from Montreal, Canada.
Hi, I'm Dan. I'm 45 years old. I used to work in horticulture, but now I'm a web designer and brand identity designer.
I think these stories are also going to inspire you, but also help you set up real expectation for what the transition might look like. Let's hear them out.
Hey, my name is Isaac. I'm 29 years old. I spent my early 20s in the military and in law enforcement, and I've been doing web design for about 2 years now. My early 20s, I was a police officer, and then I went in the military. I was basically planning on living that life for the rest of my career, until I'd gotten 20 years in and could retire. I got married, met my wife, and I was like, I don't want to do this type of stuff anymore. I actually want to be home. It really shifted everything for me. So I started looking into what other trades can I learn? What other stuff can I do? I actually transitioned through the Google UX design certificate because I was initially interested in UX design. I did that right about the time when the industry took a crap and just went major downhill. And I was competing with people that just got laid off that had like 3 or 5 or 7 years at Google or something like that. And so I just shifted into web design because I knew I still wanted to do something creative. I wanted to do something in that field. And, web design had a lower barrier to entry, but it also had a much better, reward for being excellent because of that lower barrier to entry. So I found y'all and started going through your coursework about the same time I made that transition. And yeah, it's been about 2 years now. I think I found y'all about halfway through. And after doing all the coursework, changing my processes, actually getting good at what I was doing, I've actually been able to triple my income from the first year. I thought that if I had the certificate, I'd get hired. And that's the way they market it, by the way. So it was
the Google
silly,
certificate.
But like
you're talking about the Google
yeah,
certificate, yeah.
Yeah. So I went just full court press trying to get that certificate. I got the certificate. I applied to probably I'm not exaggerating when I say 300 to 400 jobs. And after getting rejected by every single one of them, I was like, okay, there's something wrong here. Started doing a little bit more research, and I was like, oh, this thing isn't really that great. And also the industry's terrible right now. It's not a good time to be a newbie. So at that point I was like, what is the next thing that kind of makes the most sense that I can take what I learned about this field and kind of transition? And I really started looking seriously into web design. And basically I made a list of 20 to 25 people that I knew, and I didn't know if they needed web design. I just reached out and I said, hey, I'm doing this now. You know me, you love me, you trust me. I'd love to, get some work done for you. I'm not the best there is, but I know enough to be dangerous, and you'll be getting a really good deal. And that's how I started. They were business owners, so small businesses, and then home builders and therapists and that kind of stuff. I didn't really get into any food service or anything like that, or any crazy industries, but that's what it started with. And it was just basic stuff. It was like let's put a site together for this business because, anything is better than what they have right now, that sort of thing. And, I think I made my first site for free for someone. And then I think I moved up to maybe $750 for a site, and then moved up to, a grand and a half. And then kind of just kept increasing little by little as I was getting better. I haven't gotten into the 7 to 10 grand realm yet, although I know what that should look like. I just haven't found the clients that are at that point. Most of my clients right now are either they need something And so, they just like, they're not ready to invest the big amount, or they're like, okay, I have something, but I need to make it better. But they're not in the business stage where they're like, okay, we have something here, but we really want to like go all in because, we understand the value of it. And also we have the money to invest in it. And that's probably some of that is my own fault because I've been talking for a little bit now about, okay, I need to stop taking these lower clients. I need to move up into, bigger clients, and then the lower jobs come and I still take them. you know, so I got to practice what I preach a little bit. This transition was the hardest thing that I've ever done, because like you're in an oversaturated market where everyone is a million times better than you are, and you feel like a fool. Like I felt like an idiot probably for the first like year and a half that I was doing this. I didn't identify with like, I didn't feel like I was a designer, and I was like, this is terrible. Like I suck at this. What am I doing? And I got to credit my wife, man. She was like, hey, you know what? Everyone sucks at something. And the difference between people that, don't, people that continue to, or just that they don't give up. You just got to keep going. Probably her and a little bit of Alex Hermosi is what kept me going, through that, where I was like, I just need to push harder. And that was kind of my recipe, honestly, was just putting in like 10 to 12 hours a day, every day, 7 days a week, for a whole entire like year and a half before I really started to see like breakthrough. But I definitely, imposter syndrome was probably the hardest thing. I think the other tough thing is that I didn't have a good mentor during that time. I had some like really part-time, mentors that really weren't there very much. I never really had anyone that I could go to and say like, is this a good direction that I'm pursuing? Should I be, focusing on these things? Where are my weak points? Like what do I not see? What do I need to work on? And so all I had was just kind of like stabbing around in the dark. But my wife had secured a full-time job at that point, and so I had a lot of time, and so I just invested as much time and effort as I could into getting better. And it paid off, but it sucked. It was rough.
Yeah.
And this is a huge plug for just reaching out to people and connecting with them and talking. Because I had a friend from my hometown back in Tucson, Arizona, that I hadn't talked to in years, but I just wanted to catch up with and see what I'd been doing. And he had a guy that he'd connected with on Twitter, just randomly. And the guy was talking about like, hey, I need a front end designer developer. And my buddy was like, I don't know if that's what you do. And I was like, it's exactly what I do. So I got connected with this guy just by reconnecting with an old friend. And he brought me on as a contractor for a little bit, and basically kind of was that mentor that I've been looking for. Taught me, he's teaching me everything he knows. And he's also very much into leveraging AI to make processes a lot more efficient. And so whenever they sent me a job offer and also were like, hey, this is what you do, this many hours a week, but we don't care what you do outside of that. Like, feel free to continue pursuing your freelance, stuff. I was like, well, this is a no-brainer, I had been very strongly against taking a W-2 job ever since I started freelancing because I saw what the industry was doing to people. And I just saw how unreliable it was to work for, a big company, because you'll just get, you'll show up to work and there'll be, 15-minute call on your calendar with HR. And you're like, great, I know what this is. And, seeing people all over LinkedIn that I'm connected with that, I've been looking for jobs for years now and still can't get hired. I'm like, freelancing is the path toward independence. It's the path toward, basically income that you can rely on because you're making it yourself. But this was a very different situation. This company is probably like 5 or 6 people total. Still pretty small. And very much like family, but not in a dysfunctional way that most large companies say, like, we're like family, and you're like, run away. Like, these guys are actually awesome. So what it looks like now is like 9 to 5, do my work for them, and then 5 to 8, 5 to 9, whatever I can fit in, do my freelance work. It was a little spicy there for a little bit right after I got hired, because I had a few jobs I was finishing up that I had not given a timeline based on having 8 hours of other work to do every day. So had to circumnavigate through that. I had probably my worst client I've ever dealt with during that time too. Which there's a post up about that. I don't know.
Yeah,
if
I
you
just read it.
glanced at that. Man, that was wild. But once I got that taken care of, I was able to actually quote jobs out, for the right timeline. And now I kind of feel like I'm cruising. It's a really nice feeling. Feels good to be here. It felt really bad to not be here. It feels good to be here. You go for it. Be smart about it. Don't quit your job today and expect to start making a bunch of money tomorrow as a designer developer. But definitely go for it if you feel like it's something that you want to pursue. There's a lot of, because I've started mentoring a few people that just want to get started. And what I tell them is like, hey, like, get the free version of everything and go on YouTube and do some Flux, instructionals, or find some people there that are showing you how to put stuff together, and just put a site together and see how you like it. Like, if you absolutely hate it, you probably shouldn't be doing it. But if it's really fun to you, then it would be good to invest in some actual like instructionals, stuff like that. What you have to understand is that as a freelancer, you don't just need to master the craft of what you're good at. You also have to master selling yourself. And you also have to master articulating your design decisions to people that don't understand what you're doing. So I usually suggest that people do the Flux coursework revolving around like being a freelancer, because that was a huge, like, not just the processes, but also understanding. The course was really good at articulating like, hey, this is what people actually mean whenever they say these things to you, and this is what they're wanting to hear. And, giving examples of like designers and developers that say X, Y, and Z to clients aren't doing a good job of like articulating their value. They're actually kind of diminishing themselves. So that's really good to understand. I also think reading the book Articulating Design Decisions is huge too, because then you'll understand what really matters to people. And if you see in the Flux like discussion, there's a lot of people that have questions like, I know this is the better call, but my client doesn't seem to get it. And I'm always like, hey, tell them that it is better for conversions, which is better for money. And honestly, most of the time that will take care of, any of the issues where it's like, well, I don't like this. And it's like, well, you don't need to. It's okay. Like, but it's going to make you more money. And I'm telling you that because I want what's best for you. So I think that's super important. But yeah, I would say do something for free first, see how you like it, invest in some really good coursework, which I would suggest Flux like all the way. And then do a little bit of adjacent reading to kind of shore up the stuff that's not, completely taken care of there. And I think you'll be well on your way, especially if you have mentorship. That's kind of the biggest thing that I tell people about the Flux Academy, like why it's such a good deal. I was like blown away by the mentorship, like access to mentors for $2,000 a year. Like, are you kidding me? Like, I was like, that's an absolute no brainer. Like, I can't believe you put a question in that you need help with, get a response in 24 to 48 hours from someone who's basically like, they're not like at your beck and call, but like that's access that you don't get elsewhere. So it'd be pretty silly not to take advantage of that.
Hi, my name is Dan Plumidor. I'm from Montreal, Canada. An ex-corporate employee, if you will, from the corporate, and now I'm a web designer. And I should also include brand strategy, since I use brand strategy in all of the web designs that I actually do. And I am 56 years of age, and I decided to do this when I was around 53. And now I'm full-time. I'm no longer into the corporate world. I am full-time into the web design world and could not be happier. My particular background in the working world, my first job, my first real job, if you will, I worked for a railway company, one of the bigger railway companies here in Canada. And I even operated locomotives within the yard and so on. So the danger with that here is that this is what I was going to be doing for the rest of my life. And that didn't appeal to me. So I went back to school after 7 years, after 8 years of operating locomotives. I went back to school at university. But although I wanted to take web design, I actually landed in financial. So I took a finance course. And then from there, I worked for one of the major telecommunications here in Canada, where I resided for 25 years, almost 25 years. So as with anything, initially it was great, it was brilliant. But as we move along, I just wasn't happy anymore. I wasn't satisfied with what I was doing. I felt like even though what I was doing, I felt important, it was just like a very, very small thing in the wheel. One day I started watching YouTube and I saw this snippet says like how to build a website. And that was about 7 years ago. And I'm going like, okay, well, I know a little bit about coding, because I was doing a lot of data analytics, SQL, SQL, and so on and so forth. Like, how hard can this be? But it had nothing to do with that. It had everything to do with, well, here's a hosting and slap on WordPress. Here's a theme builder, and there you go, which I thought was very, very interesting. I said, I can do that. And I landed in that rabbit hole of YouTube and watching all of the YouTube videos and so on and so forth. That first YouTube video was actually by an individual named called Hogan Chua. Very, very, he was very charismatic. And then it was Daryl Wilson. So I cut my teeth on web design and web development, primarily on WordPress. But then every so often, I would always see that Webflow thing come up. I go, what is that? And that's when I was hooked. I was really, really hooked on Webflow. I said, okay, so how can I do this? And I was going to Webflow University and so on. And then I landed on Flux Academy eventually. And Flux was so full of information. And I was like, who are these guys? And when eventually there was the Webflow course, the 3.0, that was the first one that I actually saw. I go, no, you know what? I'm good with Webflow University. I'll keep going on there. But no, I needed more. I needed to have that edge. I needed to really, really, I really wanted to have Webflow into my repertoire. And I signed up and I was just absolutely blown away. Everything, it cemented together everything that I knew, but more importantly, things I didn't know. It brought everything together. And since then, I've never looked back. Because I was working in the corporate world, you sort of have that mentality that, okay, the money's coming in, I have this, I have benefits, I have all that good stuff. But when I became really, really unhappy or unsatisfied, I'll say more, I knew that I wanted to do something else. And when I would probably have to say when I turned 50, I said, okay, well, hang on a minute, can I really do this? Can I transition from this corporate world to doing web design? I mean, there's a ton of web designers out there. What could I bring to the table? So I hesitated. And eventually what I did is I spoke to my spouse's cousin. And he was a DJ here in Montreal, which is a very successful one at that. And he had a very, very old website. And I looked at him and said, do you need a new website? Well, I was thinking about redesigning and all that. Just, do you mind if I have a crack at it? Okay, sure. And that's when I said, okay, I didn't know anything about brand strategy, but I knew about strategy. From the corporate world, there's a lot of overlapping things that I actually brought over. And so I said, yeah, you know what? Here's my credentials, go ahead. He thought nothing of it. But by the time we were finished and we got together, he was like, wow, you're good at this. And that gave me confidence. That gave me the confidence to say, you know what? Yeah, I can do this. And I did that website for free. And I did a second website for a dog trainer. I did that one for a year too as well. And I said, hey, you know what? You don't have a website at all. I said, you need one. She goes, yeah, I do. So again, the same thing. I did that. She was blown away by the website and the services that I actually brought. That cemented it. That like sealed the deal. That's it. I'm going all in. And I opened up a one-man show, Skyborn. That's the name of my company. And you know, ever since then, I've been right now. I'm doing my 7th website for a client, and I've learned so many things along the way. And now it's about 2 years ago. That's when I decided, like, okay, I'm going to do what I need to do in order to ensure that I have enough money, you know, for like a cushion while I'm doing this. And as of February, I am no longer employed, and that's the day that I became self-employed. I am an early riser. Admittedly, I'm always up by about 5:30. I have a dog, so I take my shower, I get, you know, settle in, I think about my day, and I take my dog out for a walk, and when we come back, um, I settle into my office, and I developed uh, a system, you know, like to-do list. So I have an Eisenhower matrix, and then for to do, I keep it very, very simple. I just go through if you've ever heard of the Ivy Lee method, um, I do that. And then I block my time. Do I have any meetings? Do I have anything? My time. And then by 9 a.m., I'm a go. I'm doing the websites. I'm doing everything that I actually have to do, including administration stuff. Let's be honest, we cannot overlook that at all. And I try to finish by 4 p.m. By 4 p.m., I said, okay, you know what? That's it. I've done what I needed to do for today. And I enjoy the rest of the time here with my family, my dog, obviously, and other chores that I have to do around the house. If I had any advice, would be have a conversation with yourself, have a conversation with your spouse, your family members, or whatever. But have that conversation with yourself first. Okay. There's a lot of emotion when you actually make that decision to go from corporate to having something stable to doing something for yourself. But I will say this, if you, like me, are coming from the corporate world or any type of working environment that you have a lot of experience, you know this, you have experience, you have wisdom and knowledge that other people may not have. That is a superpower. And it is a superpower that you can actually use, that when you do, if you make that decision to eventually switch over, use it. It's going to serve you like you won't believe. It has me. And I attribute my experience to my current success. My first Webflow website that I did with Reloom, and thanks to a lot of the stuff that I actually did on here was actually thanks to the Webflow 4.0 when it came out here from Flux. I took a lot of what was being taught on there and I applied it on there. And I'm very proud of that one. I can't wait for it to be launched. It might be launched in the next couple of days. So it's for context, it's actually for a cake store. That's somebody who does wedding cakes and stuff like that. And when she approached me, she said, I want to be different. Oh yeah? I like that, because differentiation it's all about brand strategy. So I did a research on all of the cakes, and they all look the same. You know, very, very templatey and all that. I says, okay, you know what? We'll do something different for you. And so far, what I've had to show her mind was blown. So I'm very proud of that one. The corporate world is its own animal. Agile, Scrum, this and that, and oh, Kanban this, and you know, silo, and you know what? If this, you can consider this another piece of advice. Keep it simple. Just keep it simple, and you know what? Also, listen more than you speak. Be concise, and just keep it simple, and you're gonna have a lot of fun. I've been having a blast since. So, and I wish the same for everybody else.
Hi, I'm Dan. I'm 45 years old. I used to work in horticulture, but now I'm a web designer and brand identity designer. And my career has not been a kind of linear thing. It's gone all over the place, which actually, I'm really happy about. I've worked in advertising, but most recently I've worked in horticulture and outdoor education. And just as a kind of consequence of a change in lifestyle, I needed a job that was kind of based from home and flexible with my hours and all of that sort of stuff. And I just returned to design. So no, I never really went into design. I studied it at university. I enjoyed it, but when I came out of university, different opportunities presented themselves, and it just didn't work out. In every job that I've had, I've always used design skills. I've always used my creativity, but never formally as a designer or within an agency or freelancing or anything. It's just as a kind of add-on, really. So yeah, now it's nice to really kind of flex that muscle. I kind of had an interim period where my previous job had come to an end, but I had already had, really fortunately, some kind of a little bit of freelancing work, really. For a 6-month period, just kind of helping out with some WordPress updates of sites and designing some social media assets and things like that. So I had a kind of a real transition period where I was able to do that, but at the same time upskill myself. So I used about a 6-month period just to really kind of immerse myself in all the design tools. So going right back to the beginning and reacquainting myself with the Adobe suite, and then just kind of working out what direction I wanted to take that in and what technologies I needed to, learn from scratch, really. So things like Figma and Webflow, things like that. It was a little bit of a side hustle. I suppose I was doing kind of working for 50%, and then 50% I was, learning and training myself, really. So it wasn't like a full-time thing where I couldn't where I didn't have that time to upskill. So yeah, it was a really nice period of time where I was able to concentrate. And I've certainly heard from yourself, actually, recommendations from people not to just jump straight from a paid gig to to freelancing, because it can be daunting, and it can be a bit of a shock when you haven't got that work coming in regularly. I set myself a 6-month period where I was just learning all the technologies, and I gave myself a deadline. I'm going to give myself a month on this and a month on that. And once I'd kind of worked through the software that I wanted to learn, I also looked at the kind of the other parts of being a freelancer. So client relationships and processes and all of that sort of stuff, so that I knew that when I had my first client, I wouldn't be the complete package, but I would have, a certain understanding of how I could take them through a job and how I could, deliver a project. So once I come to that 6-month period, I really just kind of put it out there to the world, and every single social channel, Facebook, everything, it just went out there to all my friends, and I just let everybody know that this is what I was doing now, and did anyone need any help? And very fortunately, I had a lot of stuff come back just from that initial Facebook post, just to my friends and family, just about that regularity of work, just getting enough new business coming in, and recognizing that there is, a portion of time that you just need to, keep devoting to marketing yourself and generating new leads, and that's been the biggest learning curve for me, really, because as I say, I'd learned design. I've always done a bit of design, but this whole kind of lead generation, marketing stuff was just like totally new to me, and something that I really needed to work on. So I kind of and I'm still working on it. It's just one of those skills that you just have to keep plugging away at, I think. I decided that from very early on that I kind of knew what my strengths were, and one of those was about being able to communicate with a client, and being able to deliver a good project, and make sure that they knew what the timescales were, and keep the project running to schedule and all that sort of stuff. So I made sure that that was part of my offering, and that I knew that I would always deliver a really good project for people. And what the consequence of that is that I've had recommendations, and that's led to more work, really. So yeah, that's been my biggest thing, really. My first kind of projects were, I've only been really going for a year. So my first projects, I consciously, put out perhaps a lower fee than I would have liked. Fortunately, I was financially in a position to do that, but I knew that they were good projects to work on. So I did a brand identity project for a local charity, which I was really pleased with, and that's really helped them out. And and now I'm kind of working on actually some clients that are really connected with nature and the outdoors, which has a real synergy with my experience and what I bring to the table. So I'm really happy that I've been able to channel it in that way and get some clients that really resonate with my kind of core values. What benefit you can deliver to your clients. So some people might be great at design. Some people might be great at managing clients, and you don't necessarily have to be great at everything across the board. If you can figure out what your real skill is, then and channel your efforts into that, then I think that's a good thing. And then just work on the things that you know that you're not so good at. So just being brutally honest with yourself and kind of going, okay, I need to work on this area, and just focusing on that. Thanks for everything. You've been awesome in my journey. I've done 3 of your things now, so
I
it's been
appreciate
really
that.
helpful. Yeah,
Glad
thank
it
you.
was.